Hi, this is Sarit Switzer, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast, a podcast devoted to the teachings of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi as recorded in his most famous work, the Tanya. My hope for this show is to make these teachings accessible and relatable to the average person, regardless of prior Jewish education or affiliation. The episodes follow the prescribed daily study portions and are meant to serve as practical lessons in how to live your life as your true self and develop an authentic and powerful relationship with your Creator. I have personally experienced the effects the study of this work has had on me, and I'm excited to share what I can of this knowledge with you. So please join me on this journey of learning, self-growth, and connection with your source. Hi, and welcome to the It Is Taught podcast. This is episode 367 for the 30th of Cheshvan in a leap year. First of all, happy Rosh Chodesh. This is day 1 of 2 of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Very exciting Rosh Chodesh because this month of Kislev is when we're actually going to be concluding the Tanya and starting it anew. Kislev is a really big month in the world of Chabad. A lot of Hasidic holidays come out in this month, and maybe I'll mention some of them as we go through it. And the first and foremost one is Yotes Kislev, which is coming up, which is the birthday of Chassidut, in which we commemorate when the Alter Rebbe was released from prison, and we begin the Tanya anew. So stay tuned for that coming up in just a short while, in a little under 3 weeks' time. All right, so getting into today's section, think back. We're going to come back and think back to when we were children and when you were in school. This will be particularly relevant to those of you that went to Jewish schools, but even if you did not go to a Jewish school, then most likely you can relate in some way to something similar. So those of you that went to Jewish schools, then you remember that there was a time we had to daven in school. So from a very early age in Jewish schools, then teachers instruct children how to daven, and there's like davening time in the very beginning of the day where all the students are at their desks and they have a sitter and they daven, and the teacher monitors them and make sure that everybody is davening. So think back to that time and think about it. What were you honestly thinking about while you were davening? Were you thinking about God consciously? I mean, maybe you were a very holy kid. Or were you more concerned with the teacher not catching you talking to your friend, or making sure that the teacher sees that you are behaving properly and doesn't punish you? So I don't know what the answer is to that. And for those of you that did not go to Jewish school, perhaps you can think of another equivalent to this in your life, maybe saying the Pledge of Allegiance in school. If you did that, were you really thinking about the words so much, or were you just mostly concerned with the teacher not catching you? So whatever the case is, as we'll learn today, even if your main concern as a child was not getting caught and not having the teacher scold you and punish you, then that's not that bad. And that in fact, children are very pure, and there's a certain purity that children have that we all kind of should aspire to. And in fact, all of us do have this inner child inside that is pure in the sense, and that in fact these prayers of children should not be taken very lightly, and that they actually ascend very high to the point that we can actually use this ascension of the prayers of children as a point of comparison for when a person learns Torah in kind of like a neutral way, like when a person's just like learning Torah, but they're not necessarily consciously thinking about God, as we mentioned. Their Torah, in that case, rises to the same level as the level of these children praying. And in fact, as we'll learn, the prayer of children actually can rise even higher than that. So, okay, so to put all of this into context, so we're still in essay 3 of Kuntres Acharon, and we're going to be concluding essay 3 here. And we've been talking about levels. We've been talking about spiritual levels, that different types of intentions that we have when we're praying and when we're studying Torah have. And so to break this down for you in a really simple way, just to explain it, is that when it comes to learning Torah, there are 3 levels. There's the highest level, which is the level when we learn Torah and we're consciously thinking about God, and it's like we're really, really consciously, when we learn that Torah, we're learning it for God's sake. We're learning it really out of this like love and fear of God. And it's very conscious and real in our minds. Then there's the middle level of Torah studying, one step below, which is where we don't have any negative intent while we're learning Torah, but are we consciously meditating about God? the whole time? I don't know about that. Most of the time, we're probably maybe just trying to understand the words, trying to really just grasp what's being taught. And we're really focused on that, on understanding the concepts. That's the middle level. Then there's the lowest level of Torah study, which is this Torah study, which is for self-aggrandizement, for ego, for everybody will know how smart I am. And, I want to gain something out of this Torah study. It's a very selfish kind of form of Torah study. That's the lowest level. Then we come to prayer. And when it comes to prayer, there are actually only two levels. There's prayer, which is with good intent. When I say levels, there's actually many levels here. I should put that as a disclaimer, but there's two general levels that the Alter Rebbe has been discussing here, and it's easier for simplicity to keep that in mind. Level 1, the higher level of davening, is when you pray with feelings in your heart of love and fear of God. Like you're really praying with this really good intention, each one according to their level, right? Then there's the lower level of prayer where you're praying, but you're distracted. You're not really focused on the words. You're not really focusing on what you're saying and all of that kind of stuff. Okay. So those are the two different categories to keep in mind: 3 levels of Torah study and 2 levels of prayer. And what the Alter Rebbe focuses on today in this conclusion of Essay 3 is that actually when a person prays and they're distracted during their prayers, this isn't that bad. Because why? Because it's, obviously we want to improve all the time, but this prayer that is like invalid, so to speak, meaning to say that a prayer that a person is very distracted in while they're praying is actually better than learning Torah with negative intent, learning Torah out of self-aggrandizement. So it's like on the scale of where things are, then it's better to pray with and be distracted when you pray than to learn Torah for self-aggrandizement. Why? Because learning Torah for self-aggrandizement, as we've learned, is considered to be under the sun, quote unquote, meaning to say that it doesn't ascend at all. Like if somebody learns Torah, but their Torah study is like a very selfish form of learning Torah, then it doesn't rise. There's nothing for it to rise to. Versus prayer that a person prays, but they have this distraction within it, like they have improper thoughts, like scattered throughout their prayer. This prayer actually does ascend. It doesn't ascend that high. It ascends only to the lowest firmament, but it does ascend. Now, a really simple way to understand this is just like the basic idea that when a person is praying, even if they're praying and they're being distracted, it's like the whole idea of prayer. Like, what are you doing? You're praying. You're praying to God. So obviously, there is some kind of intention in the right place. So there's some kind of lifting up process that happens, even if it's not perfect. Versus learning Torah, there is a way, unfortunately, that a person can learn Torah that is very not good, that is very destructive, that it's called to the point that Torah is called a sam ha'chaim or sam ha'mavet. It's called the drug of life or the drug of death. So it really can be used in a negative way, unfortunately. We see this like as one example throughout history, like with Christians, right? Who they use Torah for their own sake, and the Crusades, and just think about all the that's just an example that comes to mind, is think about all the death and destruction that came about through them taking the Bible and misconstruing it for their own means. But this can happen really, unfortunately, to anybody. So we really need to be careful about that. Okay, but when it comes to learning Torah, so now we talked about that negative form of learning Torah, Torah for the sake of your ego. What about if you just learn Torah in like a neutral way? Like that it's not necessarily for the sake of heaven, like you're not consciously thinking about God, but you're just trying to understand the words. So the truth is, there is love there for God. It's just the love is latent and it's innate. It's just not necessarily manifest at that moment when you're learning Torah. So in that case, that form of Torah learning, that neutral level of Torah learning, the Alter Rebbe teaches that this is not any lower than the breath of the mouths of school children, which do lift up. So what does he mean by the breath of the mouth of school children? This is an allusion to a citation in the Gemara in Masechet Shabbos, page 109b, which describes the breath of school children as being untainted by sin. And it's a reference to school children davening, praying. So as I mentioned in the introduction, so while school children, they might not be praying with the highest of high intents, but nevertheless, there is something positive about it. And so somebody who learns Torah in a neutral manner, it's not considered any less than the prayer of schoolchildren, the breath of the mouths of schoolchildren, which are pure, which do ascend. And this breath of the schoolchildren, the prayer of the schoolchildren, it ascends upwards, even if it's not altruistic, even if it's not like totally, for the sake of God, but it's what's prompting these children to pray is because they are scared of getting punished by their teacher, right? They're scared that their teacher is going to yell at them if they don't pray. But nevertheless, even though that's their motivation, it still ascends. And then the Alter Rebbe concludes with a very interesting teaching from the Zohar on page 255b, that the angels elevate the breath of schoolchildren all the way to the world of Atzilus, which is the highest of all the worlds. So all of this requires a lot more investigation and study about all of this. It's very interesting, but the basic takeaway is a few things. Is first of all, we shouldn't take the prayers of children too lightly. There's something very pure and innocent about the prayers of schoolchildren that has a very that does ascend on high, and it's actually something we should aspire to, and we should all kind of tap into our inner child that has this innocence with them. And also when we learn Torah, even when we're learning Torah and we're not necessarily consciously thinking about God the entire time, we shouldn't get too down about this, because we should recognize the fact that we're learning Torah so long as like we don't have this like malicious intent behind it, that we want everybody to look at us as if we're so smart, or that we're going to use this Torah study in a negative way in some way. If we're learning it in a more neutral way, that is actually stemming from our innate love and fear of God. So, which is likened to this it's kind of on the same level as this prayer of schoolchildren, which again should not be taken so lightly. So that's it for today. And so we will continue tomorrow when we get into a new essay 4 of Kuntres Acharon. I will speak to you then. And once again, have a very happy Rosh Chodesh. Thanks for listening to the It Is Taught podcast, hosted by Sarit Switzer. This podcast is dedicated in loving memory of my maternal grandfather, Avraham Yitzchak ben Binyamin HaKohen of blessed memory. Music by Shoshana. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the show, please share it with others and subscribe on YouTube, Apple iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And make sure to leave us a 5-star review. To find out more about the It Is Taught project, including more information on my soon-to-be published book, please visit our website, itistaught.com. To catch the latest from me, follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, and until then, have a great day.